The Terrasian command carrier Dominance arrived at Helios Colony, accompanied by a battle group of 12 warships. On the bridge, General Vaughn surveyed the tactical display. 6 collective vessels attacking the colony, he reported. Orbital defenses already compromised. Kalia studied the display. Where are the Earth ships? Delayed, Vaughn said with poorly concealed satisfaction. Apparently, they encountered navigational difficulties. Chad frowned. That's impossible. Your navigational systems are clearly inferior to Terrasian technology, Vaughn interrupted. Fortunately, we don't need human assistance. As the Terrasian fleet moved toward the embattled colony, Chad pulled Kalia aside. Something's wrong, he whispered. Earth ships don't just get lost in hyperspace, especially not 3 battle groups simultaneously. You think Vaughn interfered somehow? Or someone did? The timing is too convenient. The tactical officer's voice interrupted their conversation. Enemy vessels altering formation. They're combining. On the main view screen, the 6 collective ships were physically connecting, their black crystalline structures merging to form a single massive vessel. Full attack, Vaughn ordered. All ships concentrate fire on the central mass. General, wait. Kalia called out. We need to analyze. But the Tashian fleet had already opened fire. For a moment, it seemed effective. The enemy's surface rippled under the barrage. Then it adapted. The crystalline surface began absorbing the energy, glowing with accumulated power. Before anyone could react, the collective ship released the energy in a devastating wave that washed over the Traxian fleet. 2 smaller vessels exploded immediately. 3 more lost power, drifting helplessly. The Dominance shuddered violently as its shields barely held. 50% shield failure, reported the tactical officer. Weapon systems compromised. Vaughn stared at the view screen in shock. Impossible. Our weapons. They used our own energy against us, Chad said grimly. Classic adaptation. Kalia turned to Chad. Ideas. He studied the tactical display. They've adapted to energy weapons. What about physical projectiles? Our kinetic torpedoes were depleted at Nexus Prime. Resupply ships haven't reached us yet. Chad's eyes lit up. What about mining charges? Does the colony have any? Of course. Helios is primarily a mining operation. Before they could implement their plan, the communications officer called out, incoming transmission. It's an Earth vessel, sir. The view screen shifted to show a human commander, her uniform bearing the insignia of the Earth Confederation. Tashian Command Vessel, this is Admiral Charlesworth of the Earth Battle Group Intrepid. Apologies for our delay. We encountered unexpected interference in our navigation systems. Chad stepped forward. Admiral, this is Diplomatic Envoy Russell. We're facing a combined collective vessel that can absorb and redirect energy weapons. We need your assistance. Understood, Envoy Russell. Our ships are equipped with mass driver cannons, physical projectiles, not energy-based. Kalia joined Chad. Admiral, we're planning to attach mining explosives directly to the enemy vessel. Can your ships provide cover? Better than that, Princess, Admiral Charlesworth replied with a grim smile. We can deliver your package. Our strike craft are faster and more maneuverable than anything in your fleet. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recent Traxian military history. Human and Tashian ships maneuvered in concert, each compensating for the other's weaknesses. Earth's physical weapons hammered the collective vessel while Terrasian energy weapons intercepted smaller robotic craft. The human strike craft attached mining explosives to the collective vessel's vulnerable areas. When they detonated, the massive ship was torn apart in a spectacular explosion. Colony reports collective ground forces have ceased functioning, the communications officer announced. They just shut down when the ship was destroyed, Chad said. Just like at Nexus Prime. Cut off the command center, and the rest becomes inert. Admiral Charlesworth's face appeared on the view screen again. Traxian Command, all collective forces appear neutralized. We're receiving reports from the other colonies as well. Similar victories. The collective underestimated what our peoples could accomplish together. Indeed, Kalia agreed. My government has authorized me to propose immediate talks on formalizing our alliance in light of this shared threat. As the transmission ended, Chad moved to Kalia's side. Quite the diplomatic victory to match the military one. The battle was the easy part, she said quietly. Now comes the real challenge, convincing my people that the future lies in cooperation, not conquest. Before Kalia could say more, General Vaughn approached, flanked by 2 armed guards. Princess Kalia, he said formally, I must insist you return to Tarax's Prime immediately for your safety. The emphasis on the last words made his meaning clear. This was not a request. The crisis is over, General, she replied coolly, and I have alliance negotiations to oversee. The Council has specifically ordered your return, Vaughn insisted. They were displeased by your unauthorized tactical decisions. Chad stepped slightly closer to Kalia. Funny timing for such orders, General. Almost as if someone doesn't want the princess involved in alliance talks. Vaughn's eyes narrowed. This doesn't concern you, human. Actually, it does, Chad replied. As Earth's diplomatic representative, I formally request Princess Kalia's presence at the alliance negotiations. Diplomatic protocol gives her the right to accept or decline. I accept, Kalia said quickly. Please inform the Council that I will return after preliminary negotiations are complete. Vaughn's face darkened. You're making a mistake, Princess. There are factions who will not look kindly on this. I'm well aware of the political landscape, General. Now, if you will excuse us, the Admiral is waiting. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Traxian High Council was packed to capacity. Council members, military officers, noble families, and diplomatic representatives from Earth filled every available space. At the center stood General Vaughn, his voice resonating through the chamber. And so, I urge the Council to reconsider this hasty alliance, he concluded. The collective threat, while real, does not justify surrendering Terrasian sovereignty to human oversight. The massive doors swung open, interrupting his speech. A murmur swept through the crowd as Princess Kalia entered, her head held high. Beside her walked Chad Russell, dressed in formal Earth diplomatic attire. Princess, High Counselor Merrick said, surprise evident in his voice, we expected you to remain with the diplomatic team aboard the human vessel. I felt this matter required my personal attention, Kalia replied, her voice carrying throughout the hall, especially when the future of our people is at stake. Vaughn's expression darkened. The Council has already decided to review the treaty terms. Your presence is unnecessary. On the contrary, Kalia said, moving to the center of the chamber, I bring new information that directly impacts our deliberations. The hall fell silent as she turned to address the entire assembly. 3 days ago, our intelligence division intercepted a transmission from a collective scout ship. Analysis confirms they're gathering a fleet, one far larger than anything we've encountered. Their target appears to be both Taxis Prime and Earth. Shocked whispers spread through the crowd. This information hasn't been verified, Vaughn objected. It could be misinformation or even a human fabrication to pressure us into accepting their terms. The transmission was authenticated by both Traxian and human cryptographers, Chad said, stepping forward, and subsequent long-range scans have confirmed unusual activity in the Vega sector consistent with a large-scale mobilization. If this is true, Counselor Vex said, then we have even more reason to focus on our own defenses, rather than diluting our forces through alliance with. With respect, Counselor, Chad replied, neither of our civilizations can withstand what's coming alone. The collective adapts to each encounter. They've already developed countermeasures for Traxian energy weapons, and next time, they'll have answers for Earth mass drivers too. Only together do we stand a chance. Not just militarily, but culturally, Kalia added. The collective is a singular entity, uniform, unchanging except to overcome specific obstacles. Our strength lies in diversity, in the combination of different perspectives and approaches. She moved closer to Chad, their shoulders nearly touching. Which is why I've made a decision that I believe will secure our alliance and our future. The assembly waited, tension building. In accordance with ancient Traxian tradition, I have accepted a formal bond with Envoy Chad Russell of Earth, Kalia announced. A bond of both diplomatic and personal nature. The hall erupted in astonished exclamations. Vaughn looked thunderstruck. This is outrageous, he sputtered. The royal bloodline cannot be. The royal bloodline has always adapted to ensure Terrasian survival, Kalia cut him off. My ancestors forged marriages with former enemies to secure peace. I do the same now, with the full authority of my position. Chad stepped forward. My government has recognized this union and elevated it to the status of a binding treaty component. Any rejection of it would constitute a breach of diplomatic protocol. It was a masterful move. By invoking ancient tradition and modern diplomacy simultaneously, they created a situation where rejecting their union would require rejecting the alliance itself, something increasingly difficult to justify with a collective threat looming. High Counselor Merrick studied them for a long moment, then slowly rose from his seat. The Council recognizes the princess's right to form such a bond, he said carefully. However, the implications for succession and governance must be addressed. Agreed, Kalia said. Which is why I propose a new governing structure for joint human-Traxian territories, one that respects both our traditions while creating something new. As she outlined her proposal, Chad watched the assembly's reactions. Opposition remained, particularly from Vaughn and his supporters, but it was tempered now by curiosity and, from some quarters, cautious approval. When she finished speaking, Merrick called for a brief recess to consider her words. As the council members withdrew for deliberation, Kalia and Chad found themselves momentarily alone in an antechamber. That was quite a performance, Chad said quietly, though I'm not sure which part was more shocking, the news about the collective fleet or our supposed bond. Both were necessary, Kalia replied, and only one was exaggerated. The collective fleet is real, then. Very. Our intelligence suggests they'll reach Taxian space within 2 weeks. Chad absorbed this grimly. And our bond, was that purely strategic as well? Kalia met his eyes. What do you think, Chad Russell? I think, he said slowly, that when you challenged me in that fighting pit, neither of us could have imagined where it would lead. No, she agreed softly, though I'm beginning to believe it was inevitable. The door opened before either could say more. Captain Thorne entered, his expression unusually respectful as he bowed to both of them. Princess, Envoy Russell, he said, the council has reached a decision. They request your presence immediately. They followed him back to the main chamber, where the assembly had reconvened. High Counselor Merrick stood at the center, his posture formal. After careful consideration, he announced, the Council has voted to accept the alliance treaty with Earth, including the provisions for joint defense and the formal recognition of Princess Kalia's bond with Envoy Russell. A mixture of reactions swept through the assembly, relief, surprise, and in some corners, barely concealed outrage. Furthermore, Merrick continued, the Council acknowledges the imminent threat posed by the collective. All military forces are hereby placed on high alert, with joint training exercises to begin immediately. 2 weeks later, the combined fleet of Earth and Taraxis assembled in deep space. On the Bridge of the Vindication, now designated as the Alliance flagship, Kalia and Chad stood side by side, watching the final preparations. Long-range sensors confirm collective vessels approaching, reported the tactical officer, a human woman working alongside a Traxian counterpart. Estimated time to engagement, 30 minutes. All ships report ready status, added Captain Thorne. Joint fighter squadrons are standing by for launch. Kalia nodded, her expression resolute. Commence Operation Thunderbolt. All vessels to designated positions. The massive fleet began to move with coordinated precision, forming the complex formation they had developed specifically to counter the collective tactics. Human ships with their physical weapons positioned to protect Traxian vessels, which in turn provided energy shields for their more vulnerable allies. It's impressive, Chad said quietly. 2 weeks ago, these crews could barely communicate. Now they move as one. Necessity is a powerful motivator, Kalia replied, as is shared purpose. The battle unfolded according to their carefully crafted plan, each side playing to its strengths, compensating for the other's weaknesses. When the collective adapted to one tactic, the alliance shifted to another, maintaining the initiative. As the alliance fleet secured their victory, Kalia and Chad found a quiet moment alone in her ready room. We did it, Chad said, the weight of the past weeks finally showing in his voice. We actually did it. The first battle, Kalia reminded him. There will be others. The collective is vast, according to what we've learned. But now we know they can be defeated, he said, and we've proven what our peoples can accomplish together. Kalia moved closer, taking his hands in hers. Yes. Together. The word held new meaning now, not just an alliance of convenience or necessity, but something deeper, something that had begun in a fighting pit with mockery and broken armor and grown into a bond that might reshape two civilizations. What happens now? Chad asked softly. Now, Kalia said, we build something new. Not just Terrasian, not just human. Something better than either alone. Ambitious, he observed with a smile. I've never aimed for less, she replied. Neither have you. Their lips met in a kiss that sealed their private promise to each other and to the future they would forge together, a future where differences became strengths, where ancient enemies could become allies, and where even the most unlikely beginnings could lead to something extraordinary. The observation deck of Space Station Unity offered a spectacular view of the ceremony below. Dozens of ships, human and Terrasian designs alongside new hybrid vessels, performed intricate maneuvers in perfect synchronization. Chad Russell stood at the viewport, wooden nunchaku hanging at his belt, no longer just a meditative tool but a symbol recognized throughout two civilizations. Enjoying the show? Kalia asked as she joined him, her emerald skin contrasting with her white Alliance High Commander uniform. It's impressive, Chad admitted, though I'm more interested in what happens after the ceremony. Kalia smiled. The diplomatic reception, or our private celebration? Both have their appeal, he replied, though I'm particularly looking forward to showing you the surprise I've arranged. Another surprise. The last one involved that Earth delicacy, ice cream, which you loved. It was acceptable, Kalia conceded, though her eyes betrayed her fondness. A chime from her communication device interrupted them. Kalia frowned at the message. General Vaughn is demanding a private audience before the reception. Want me to come with you? Chad asked. Better not. He's more likely to speak freely if it's just me. Be careful, Chad warned. Vaughn may have lost power, but he hasn't lost his ambition. I can handle Vaughn, Kalia replied confidently before departing. Chad watched the fleet demonstration conclude, reflecting on how much had changed in a year. The collective had launched 2 more attacks, each defeated more decisively than the last. With each victory, the alliance had grown stronger. His thoughts were interrupted by the station's alert system, a soft tone indicating an internal security issue. Attention all personnel, security breach detected in Conference Room 2. Chad raced through the corridors, joined by High Counselor Merrick and Captain Thorne. General Vaughn entered with Commander Kalia, Thorne explained as they ran. Our systems detected an energy signature matching collective frequencies. They reached the conference room to find the door sealed. From inside came the sound of energy weapons and Kalia shouting combat commands. When they finally overrode the door, they found chaos. Kalia crouched behind an overturned table, weapon in hand. Across the room stood General Vaughn, his body a grotesque hybrid of Terrasian flesh and collective technology. The collective sends its regards, Vaughn said, his voice mechanically distorted. Your alliance has been inconvenient. So you infiltrated one of our generals, Chad said, positioning himself to flank the corrupted Terrasian. There are others like me throughout both your civilizations, the hybrid replied. Waiting. Watching. Chad caught Kalia's eye, a silent communication passing between them. While Vaughn monologued about the collective's plans, Chad struck with his nunchaku, targeting the junctions where technology merged with flesh. Simultaneously, Kalia fired her weapon. The security team joined the attack, following Captain Thorne's orders. Cease energy weapons. Physical attacks only. Together, they overwhelmed the hybrid. As Vaughn fell to his knees, the crystalline structures on his body began pulsing with energy. Everyone out. Chad shouted. He's going to self-destruct. They barely cleared the threshold before an explosion rocked the conference room. In the corridor, Chad held Kalia close. Are you all right? She nodded against his chest. I'm fine. He caught me off guard initially, but I was handling it. Of course you were, Chad said with a smile. I just thought you might appreciate the assistance. The timing was acceptable, she conceded. Despite the incident, they decided to proceed with the ceremony. That's exactly what the collective wants, to disrupt our alliance, Kalia insisted. We show strength, not fear. Later, as the diplomatic reception concluded, Chad guided Kalia to a quiet corner. I believe I mentioned a surprise earlier, he said, withdrawing a small box crafted from earthwood and Traxian metal. Inside lay a pendant, a fusion of both worlds' artistic traditions. "It's beautiful," Kalia said as he fastened it around her neck. "It's also functional," Chad explained. "It can generate a personal shield in emergencies." "Still worried about my safety after all this time?" "Always," he admitted, "though I've seen you handle yourself in enough battles to know you rarely need protection." "Thank you. Not just for this, but for everything. For showing me a different path when I could only see conquest or isolation." "We showed each other," Chad corrected. "That's the whole point of what we built. Neither of us could have done it alone." Chad took a deep breath. "There's more. The Council has approved our joint colonization project. They're calling it New Beginning." "A bit on the nose," Kalia observed, though pleased. "They want you as governor." "I've been offered the position of diplomatic liaison. We'd be working together, but you'd be in charge." "As it should be," Kalia said with a teasing smile. "And you agreed to this arrangement?" "I suggested it," Chad admitted. "You're the natural leader between us." Kalia was silent for a moment. "It would mean leaving active military command." "Yes. But it would mean building something lasting. A model for future integration." She met his eyes. "And we would be together." "That was a key consideration," Chad said softly. "Then I accept, on one condition." "Name it." "That this isn't just about the colony," she said, her voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. "That it's also about us." Chad stepped closer. "It was always about us, Kalia. From the moment you mocked my nunchaku and I broke your armor. We just didn't know it yet." Their kiss was witnessed by dozens of diplomats, many of whom broke into spontaneous applause. Later, as they stood once more at the observation deck watching the stars, Chad asked, "New Beginning, when do we start?" "We already have," Kalia replied, leaning against him. "1 year ago in a fighting pit, when a princess mocked a human's nunchaku and found her armor in pieces 1 minute later." "Some beginnings are worth every broken piece," Chad said softly. Kalia smiled, looking out at the stars that would soon be home to their new colony, their new life together. "Yes," she agreed. "Yes, they are."